Spring is here, and not a moment too soon.
The good news is that global warming is over. The bad news is global cooling is on the way.
Plus, the audience loved him.
That's the best you could do!
But his wife wasn't laughing.
My marriage was breaking down.
How this comedian cleaned up his act and saved his marriage.
Every joke, my spirit is like, oh.
Welcome to this edition of the 700 Club. Do you get tired of hearing about budget battles and you think, what difference about a budget? Well, it's going to mean a lot to you and your family, a whole lot. Well, the congressional negotiators say they finally got it close to a budget deal. They're going to cut $33 billion out of spending. That's still just a pittance, but it's better than what they've done before.
Well, because it's a pittance, conservatives and Tea Party members are hoping for much deeper cuts. Jennifer Wishon has the story from Washington.
Every day that passes, the nation inches closer to a federal government shutdown. For those who want to count the hours, Georgia Republican Congressman Paul Brown has launched the website countdowntotheshutdown.com. In the next 8 days, lawmakers must agree on how to spend your tax dollars and borrowed money through the close of the fiscal year that ends on September 30th. The House passed a plan 40 days ago that includes $60 billion in spending cuts, but the Senate has yet to act, and House Republicans accuse Senator Harry Reid of putting politics over policy. This week in a conference call, New York Senator Charles Schumer called the House spending cuts extreme. He thought he was only talking to colleagues, but reporters were also on the line as he talked about splitting Republicans away from the Tea Party.
I always use the word extreme. That's what the caucus instructed me to do the other week. Extreme cuts and all these riders. And Boehner's in a box. But if he supports the Tea Party, there's going to inevitably be a shutdown.
We've never been instructed to refer to the other party as extreme. And in fact, it's the American people that have instructed us to address what is really extreme, and that's the national debt.
The House is waiting on the Senate to pass a plan so the two sides can meet at the bargaining table.
You either cut spending or you raise taxes. Where is Harry Reid's plan to raise taxes? How are the people going to suffer? How are they going to deal with increased costs through higher taxes?
As negotiations continue, the holdup is over how much to cut. Democrats are working to ease the GOP's cuts, while Tea Party-backed Republicans are working to cut even more. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
Well, with us now is the man who's the acknowledged expert in the Congress on the national debt. He's the House Budget Chairman, Congressman Paul Ryan. Congressman, wonderful to have you with us today. Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Pat. Good morning.
Look, I started this segment talking about what does this budget mean to the average American that's watching this program? What do these negotiations mean in their lives?
Well, first of all, if you're talking about just $60 billion, our current deficit is $1.6 trillion. So even if we get the cuts that we've been pushing for in the House, our budget deficit will be $1.54 trillion. So while we're talking about tens of billions of dollars, we've got to deal with the trillions of unfunded promises politicians in Washington are making to the American people. And so we have a debt crisis coming in this country, and we want to get serious about it. And so what it means to people is, what will the future for your children and grandchildren be? What will the economy be? Because if you have all this borrowing, we're borrowing about 40 cents on every dollar that Washington spends today, half of that from other countries like China. What does that do to our economy? When you raise all this borrowing, it just means you're going to have higher taxes and higher interest rates tomorrow. So it slows down the economy today. And if you don't get this debt under control, that quite literally means that our children and grandchildren will have a lower living standard than what we have. We will sever the American legacy of leaving the next generation better off. And we believe we have a moral obligation to you know, to the American people, to our constituents, to fix this problem before it gets out of our control. And the good news is we can still fix it. The bad news is up here in Washington, we have no partners to negotiate with. The other side of the aisle is just choosing to walk away from this fight. The president gave us a budget that gives us so much more debt, so much more borrowing, so much more taxes. That is just not it's a non-starter. And so that's where we find ourselves right now.
What is Chuck Schumer talking about extreme? I mean, that seems to be the mantra that the Democrats are going to use. The cuts he was referring to, I think, were something in the neighborhood of $5 billion. Extreme.
Yeah, so look, $60 billion out of a $3.8 trillion budget, extreme. I think what that gives you a window into their tactics, which is politics, basically. They want to politicize this budget fight. A lot of us think that they're actually looking for a government shutdown because they believe that it helps them politically because they can blame Republicans. We're not trying to shut down the government. We're just trying to cut spending. We're trying to save this country from a debt crisis, and we're trying to get a good down payment on spending cuts. We're talking about tens of billions now. Next week, when we bring our budget to the floor, our budget for next year and the next 10 years, we're going to be talking about our plan to get this debt under control, our plan to take trillions of spending off of government and back into the hands of taxpayers. We're going to be talking about saving our entitlement programs. What it really means is if we fix these budget problems we have today, we can make sure that people who've already retired, who've already organized their lives around programs like Social Security, Medicare, that they can continue to count on those programs. And that younger generations, like my X generation, will actually have programs they can count on when they retire. That's really what this is about, which is being honest with the American people, looking at the facts, and fixing this problem before it gets out of our control. And that's what we want to do.
You have a roadmap, I understand. Are you going to release any specifics of what you have in mind?
Yes, so I'm the chairman of the Budget Committee. Under our procedures, the budget comes due in April. So next week, I will be rolling out the Republican budget. What you're talking about, this current skirmish with the Schumer and all of that stuff, that is just spending for discretionary spending, government agency budgets for the rest of this fiscal year. I will be bringing out a comprehensive budget plan for the next 10 years. A budget plan which will be focused on lifting the crushing burden of debt off of future generations, getting this economy growing by getting jobs and economic growth back on track, and fixing these entitlement programs that are going bankrupt. That's what I'll be rolling out on behalf of the Republican caucus next week.
Ron Paul was talking about $500 billion is needed to get this thing even close to being under control. Are you proposing anything that drastic?
Well, so we will be, they talk about primary balances, what I think you're looking at. The president, we had the Congressional Budget Office look at his budget, and it doesn't even come anywhere close to a sustainable budget. We will get this deficit under control. We will put out a plan in place to get this debt paid off. It takes time to do that. It took a lot of time to get in this mess. It's going to take some time to get out of it. But we're going to put a plan out there and basically give the country a choice of two futures. Do you want the historic American idea, the exceptionalism, that opportunity society with a safety net? Or do you want to go down the path the president has put out for us, which is putting us down toward a debt-ridden crisis, a cradle-to-grave European-style social welfare state? That is not what America was meant to be. But unfortunately, that's the path we are on, and we want to get off that path back to America's historical founding and back toward having a prosperous society where Americans have a government that actually speaks honestly with them and pays its bills.
You know, last question. There are riots in France, Great Britain. People are rioting about budget cuts. Do you think the special interest groups are going to permit a serious budget that cuts spending?
They're going to try. Look, I come from Wisconsin. We have our own issues there. Yeah. There's lots of protests all around. There are protests here in Washington. They're going to try. I look at America as different than Europe. I still believe that most Americans want us to be an independent, self-sufficient people. We believe in the American idea, liberty, freedom, self-determination, economic liberty. Those things still dominate our culture, and I still think we have a great chance of fixing this. You know, I find it amazing. You mentioned France. You had young people in France going to the streets complaining about the retirement age being raised from 60 to 62, and they haven't even started their careers yet. But here in America, we have the Tea Party. We have people going out peacefully demonstrating, asking for government to do less. So I really think that we will get this fixed in America. We just have to have the right kind of honest, political, principled leadership here in Washington.
Well, power to you. Our prayers are with you for success. I think our future depends on it.
I agree.
Congressman Paul Ryan from Wisconsin, chairman of the House Budget Committee. Well, Lee Webb has the rest of our top stories from the CBN Newsroom. Lee?
Pat, Libya's foreign minister has defected. Moussa Kousa's arrival in London may be a sign that Muammar Gaddafi's inner circle is falling apart. British authorities are questioning Kousa, however. He's been accused of planning the Lockerbie terrorist bombing. Meanwhile, forces loyal to Gaddafi are making gains against the disorganized and poorly armed rebels. The U.S. is still deciding whether or not to send arms to them. But the CIA has already sent small teams of operatives to eastern Libya to train the rebels. Some in Congress worry that the U.S. still does not know enough about these rebels and shouldn't arm them just yet. Pat, what do you think?
Well, I agree with some in Congress who say we don't know who they are. We trained the Mujahideen to fight the Russians, and guess what? Out came Al-Qaeda and their ilk. They were trained and equipped by America. I read yesterday somebody was saying the jihadists can't win anywhere without U.S. support. So what have we done? We have allowed them to set up an independent Muslim Kosovo. We have let the Muslims win in various places with the help of our arms. And I don't like Muammar Gaddafi, but is the devil we know better than one we don't know? And so we don't know yet. So I think we ought to take a long look. We do know for certain that a number of jihadis are now in that rebel group in Libya. How serious their involvement is, we don't know yet, but I think we ought to before we start shipping vast amount of weapons to them. Lee?
Pat, the death toll from the Japan earthquake is now well over 11,000. Another 16,000 remain missing, and radiation levels are still rising from that crippled nuclear power facility. That's why authorities may expand the evacuation zone another 12 miles, but they insist that the high levels of radiation still do not pose an immediate health threat. Plant operators report some progress, though, in pumping out contaminated water from around some of the plant reactors. Repairs cannot be completed until that water is removed. The United States is not prepared for a major earthquake. That's the conclusion of a recent study by the National Research Council. It says Americans have developed a false sense of security, and that could prove to be deadly. Out of the 50 states in the U.S., 39 have a moderate to high risk of a quake. And the most dangerous zone, it's not California. It's in the middle of the country along the so-called New Madrid fault line.
In the central United States, it's like a hard, cold slab that allows energy to travel very efficiently. In California, the rocks are relatively hot and shattered, and energy dissipates quicker.
If you look at Haiti, Chile, Christchurch, and now Japan, I think it would be the question, why aren't we looking at this hazard, and why are we not getting ready or prepared for earthquakes?
The National Academy of Sciences has come up with a plan to better prepare the U.S. Some of their recommendations include developing better building codes and emergency response plans and exercises. Pat?
I think it's going to be too little too late. We'll, like somebody said, we fight the last war, we're still fighting the Maginot Line. I think it should be a crash program, and whether or not they can retrofit these buildings, something else again, is highly unlikely. But you can just see the terrific damage that would take place as bridges collapse and roads are buckled and buildings crash in the middle of major cities.
One of the great problems, though, it seemed, was people getting clean drinking water. You could be sure that everybody has some kind of a filtered water system that could be used in an emergency. I mean, small things like that make a difference.
It saved life. It might not save property, but it certainly saved life. You're absolutely right.
Well, up next, forget global warming. We may be on the brink of a new ice age.
Cold climates kill twice as many people as warm climates. There is decreased food production, which is already occurring.
More ramifications of global cooling when we come back. And then later, we'll be taking your questions for Pat. Just log on to CBN.com and join us in the chat room to bring it online.
Coming up later.
A whale! A whale! That's the best you could do!
A stand-up comic whose marriage was breaking down.
Can anybody have a successful relationship and be in the entertainment genre?
How he changed his act.
Inside every joke, my spirit is like, oh.
And kept his wife.
Ever since the Rogers got that sunsetter awning, they've been unbearable.
Why, just because they're always outside having fun on their patio, even in the hottest days?
Now you can make the smart move, too.
by finding out all about Sunsetter retractable awnings. A Sunsetter will turn your patio or deck into an outdoor oasis.
You mean you and I could be sitting outside instead of stuck in here with the air conditioning running and all the blinds closed?
Just call for a free information kit, and you'll also receive a $200 savings certificate.
Look at them, they're having such a great time.
A Sunsetter awning adds value to your house and lets you have so much fun outside. Call now to get your $200 savings certificate.
Did you call?
I called. Call this number now to receive your free information kit, DVD, and $200 savings certificate.
1-800-668-6694. 1-800-668-6694.
Tomorrow.
They finally came back to us and said, there's a problem with your documents.
Locked up abroad.
And I realized this is for real.
An American imprisoned in Iran.
They beat me for about 6 hours.
Facing the ultimate penalty.
If I'm gonna be here the rest of my life, why not check out? The only way not to stay there was to die.
Tomorrow.
Well, the birds are singing, the flowers are starting to bloom. Americans are looking forward to spring after a terrible winter in most of the U.S. But was the frigid weather a fluke? Or was it the first of many cold and snowy years to come? Dale Hurd is in Copenhagen, Denmark, with a special report.
Another nasty winter, not just in the United States, but in Europe and parts of Asia as well. It was the worst November in Norway and Sweden in 100 years. In England, it was the coldest December in recorded weather history, the worst winter in Moscow in a century. Here in Copenhagen at the Danish Space Institute, scientists are studying the correlation between sunspot activity and the really bad winters we've been having. Dr. Jens Petersen at the Danish Space Institute says it's too early to know whether the last few harsh winters are the beginning of a prolonged cooling period.
The sun is behaving in a very unusual way. We've just been through a solar minimum, which has been unusually long. It seems as if we have to go back 200 years to find such a long solar minimum.
The Danish Space Institute is a proponent of the theory that low sunspot activity allows more cosmic rays to reach Earth, leading to more clouds and colder temperatures.
If the sun starts to become more passive or less active, then we will have more cosmic rays and we will have more clouds and we will have a colder climate on Earth.
In 2009, almost 300 days without a sunspot, 51 days without a sunspot last year. This year, sunspot activity has not only picked up, but has included some large solar flares. Does that mean warm weather is ahead? Petersen says it's too soon to know, but it may just be a blip during a longer-term solar minimum. Dr. Don Easterbrook, Professor Emeritus of Geology at Western Washington University, says we remain in a cold period.
That's right. The good news is that global warming is over, at least for the next few decades. The bad news is global cooling is on the way. It actually is arriving now.
Bad news because for all the talk about how warming was going to threaten life on the planet, cooling is actually much worse.
Cold climates kill twice as many people as warm climates. Cold extremes, the death rate is twice what it is for warm extremes. There is decreased food production, which is already occurring.
An expert at the Niels Bohr Institute says the greatest climate challenge mankind has faced has been surviving ice ages. While many scientists say there were several ice ages, leading creationists say there was just one, after the flood. But they both agree that the most recent one, ending many thousands of years ago, was a doozy. A towering ice sheet spread south over northern Europe, most of Canada, and the northern U.S. Chicago was buried under a mile of ice. It was an event so colossal that when it melted, it left behind natural wonders like the Great Lakes and the Niagara Falls. If it were to happen in today's world, the most populated cities in the northern U.S. and Europe would become all but uninhabitable, creating economic chaos and food shortages. It would be a disaster on a monumental scale. But there's little mainstream scientific concern about global cooling. 2010 was declared one of the warmest years on record, although the whole business of temperature reporting has become politicized because of global warming.
There is, of course, a totally different agenda for the people who are pushing global warming. That's all about money, about making hundreds of billions of dollars for certain individuals who are pushing the whole thing.
This week, the EU released a plan that would ban cars from European cities as a way to fight global warming. The belief in global warming is a belief that man can somehow predict future climate. But the sudden and catastrophic Japanese earthquake was a grim reminder that man remains at the mercy of nature's unpredictable and sudden extremes. This is not likely to happen in our lifetime, but scientists say the climate is perhaps the most unpredictable part of nature. Dale Hurd, CBN News, Copenhagen.
Brilliant report, Dale. I appreciate that. And maybe it puts the coup de grace to the global warming team. Wouldn't that be? It's kind of ironic and a little bit hilarious that suddenly we're freezing and these guys are screaming about global warming. It all depends on the sun. It depends on the sun. And I thought we were coming into an era of increased sunspot activity, but he's saying, well, no, it hasn't been as severe. Most extreme weather in history in places like Great Britain, I didn't know that.
Quite amazing, really. And it'll be interesting to see what the next couple of years bring and whether this really is an ongoing trend that, you know, we can expect to see for some time, or whether it's just the sun this year.
I sort of like cold, but some people are, you know.
I like cold if I have a fireplace and a nice warm blanket.
Well, I understand in Wisconsin there was a big snowstorm just last day.
17.5 inches just recently. You know, you think you're coming to the end of the winter season, and then boom. You know?
17.5, okay.
Yeah, amazing.
April showers shall bring May flowers. All right.
We can only hope.
Terry,
well, coming up, meet the young American who risked his life to fight child trafficking in Nepal, and hear how he reunited 400 families after this.
Doing a great job training her, brother Tom.
It's Bethany. For all of us who've lost what we care about.
When can I surf again?
Only to discover.
I can't even paddle out past the big waves.
What we love.
It's not going to be easy.
I don't need easy. I just need possible.
The greatest surfers know when the best waves are coming. You have that gift too. Go get them.
Soul Surfer. In theaters April 8th. Rated PG.
Have you ever heard the expression, good as gold? Well, gold is on everybody's minds these days, and rightfully so, having risen in value dramatically since 2001. For years now, I've been singing the praises of one of the most recognized and trusted names in gold, Swiss America. They believe, like I do, that people need to know what's good about gold. Gold has withstood the test of time, and so has Swiss America. Now's the time to rediscover gold, because gold offers diversification, profit potential, and best of all, privacy. Call or visit online now and ask for the Pat Boone DVD, and they'll gladly rush out a copy along with other information about getting gold into your nest egg. If you're going to buy gold, buy it from a company you can trust. I did. And I've been a satisfied Swiss America customer for over 15 years. They are as good as gold. Call or log on right now.
To listen to our top songs of the week, go to CBN Radio at cbn.com.
Today, Connor Grennan is the founder of an organization that has reunited 400 families with children they thought were lost forever. But Connor never planned to go into this line of work. It grew out of a lark that changed his life.
At 29 years old, Connor Grennan decided to leave a successful career and take a year-long trip around the world. To kick off this global adventure, Connor volunteered in an orphanage in Nepal for 3 months, mostly because he wanted to impress his friends and family. But over time, he had a change of heart. Connor came to love the children, and they formed a strong bond. When time came for him to leave, he promised to return. The following year, Connor kept his word and came back. One day, he learned some startling news. These children weren't orphans at all. They had been trafficked.
Please welcome to the 700 Club the author of a wonderful book entitled Little Princes, Conor Grennan. Conor, it's wonderful to have you
Thank
here.
you for having me, Terry.
Well, I couldn't put it down. I sat up and read it all in one night. It was quite an amazing book. Let's talk about the adventure of going to Nepal, because it was all part of a bigger picture. You were kind of off to see the world, and you needed to do something meaningful to sort of validate your choice of doing that. And then you met the Little Princes.
Yeah.
Who are they, and how did you come into that whole thing?
Yeah, you know, I'm glad you bring it up, because when I went out there, it was really just to sort of impress people. It was really just to get people off my back, to say, okay, I'm going to volunteer. No intention of doing it. That was the person I was at that time. But, you know, I got there, and they just, you know, this was during the Civil War in Nepal. I mean, these were kids that everybody said were orphan kids. They were orphans from the war in one of the poorest countries in the world, Nepal, as you know. And I just got there, and there were 18 kids there that, you know, at first I had a little bit of trouble with. I didn't know how to handle kids or anything. But they just, you know, they were
They really
kids.
embraced you, didn't they, wholeheartedly?
Literally and figuratively,
Yeah.
they embraced me, and they let me into their lives.
So here you are, you come into the world that they live in, which is really a sort of a children's home that they're in together. Everyone would have assumed that the word you'd gotten on them was correct, that these were war orphans. How did you find out these kids weren't actually orphans?
Well, unbelievably, I was there for 3 months, fell in love with the kids, decided to come back a year later. And during that time, one day, this woman comes down the path, and we're kind of looking at her and thinking, wow, this is sort of strange. Nobody comes to the orphanage, and she knocks on the gate and says, I think you have 2 of my children here. And we were just blown away. How could this possibly happen? As it turns out, in the villages, the Maoist rebels during the Civil War were actually abducting children, 5, 6, 7-year-old kids, to bring into their army, to be runners, to, you know, wash dishes, you know, clean weapons. And so parents were obviously desperate to save their kids and ended up risking them, giving them over to child traffickers. They didn't know they were child traffickers, who were saying, look, we'll take your child to Kathmandu. We'll give them an education. We'll keep them safe from the Maoist rebels. And parents were giving up their life savings. I mean, they were subsistence farmers.
So they
had
weren't
nothing.
just giving up their children, they were paying for someone to take their child to a place where they thought they were going to be saved from all of the potential war issues that surrounded them.
I mean, they were giving up their life savings for the privilege of saving their child, and their children would just end up abandoned, sold into slavery, illegally adopted. I mean, all terrible things were happening.
And, you know, sometimes, Conor, I think when we use the word trafficked, people automatically assume that you're talking about sex trafficking, but children are being trafficked in many ways.
You know, it's one of the reasons I wrote the book, because, first of all, a lot of us don't know about Nepal, understandably. I didn't either. And a lot of us don't know about this type of trafficking. I didn't either. I mean, these are trafficking. This man will have 20 kids in a small room, keep them alive on a bowl of rice a day, and have a stable of children. Sell them to hotels, sell them to families to be slaves, put them up for international adoption. They can make a lot of money that way. Send them out begging on the streets to make money from tourists. I mean, they just use these kids.
Why did the children... I mean, here you were with them on a daily basis. I mean, you learned to communicate with them, and you know, they knew everything about your world at that point, and you knew everything about theirs. Why did they never mention that their parents were alive, or that they'd been taken from their families?
You know, I had the exact same question. I was like, look, I've known you guys for so long. We're like brothers. Why didn't you tell me? As it turned out, it came out sort of slowly, but as it turned out, this trafficker, when he had them, he made them sort of not believe that they were orphans, but he said, go out, tell everybody you're orphans, because that's how they're going to feel so much pity for you. That's why they're going to give you the money. If you ever tell anybody, I'll just, you know, beat you almost to death. And so they had gotten beaten so badly that they thought, can you imagine, they thought that I would beat the life out of them if they ever told me that they weren't orphans.
Well, once the lady came down the path saying, I think you have a couple of my children here, and you realized that what she said was true, you really began to question how many of these children have families. And the story in the book of how you go back, I mean, you were in Kathmandu, but these children were from a long distance away. And one of the things that a lot of us might not realize about some of these countries, especially a country like Nepal, the city is very cityfied. But once you get outside the city, travel and transportation and all of that becomes very difficult. Tell us a little bit about the journey back to find the families. There were 7 children, I believe, in particular, whose families you were looking for.
Yeah, you know, I went back because essentially in the revolution, we found that 7 of our children, believe it or not, had gotten stolen from us, had gotten snatched away. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have to go back. I have to find them. And, you know, I was thinking this is going to take a miracle. Now, I wasn't even a Christian at the time, but I was thinking this is going to take a miracle. But one by one started to find those kids, and I thought, man, I have to find their families. There's no other future for these kids. But you're exactly right. They come from villages so remote that there's no electricity, there's no roads leading in or out. You have to walk for literally days at a time just to get to the villages.
We were just talking, Pat and I were just talking about what's happening globally weather-wise right now. I mean, you have a snowstorm in Nepal, and I mean, you don't go anywhere for maybe a whole season.
You know, this is the thing, like, I didn't know how to find the families. Everybody said, you'll never find them. They're deep in the mountains. How will you ever find them? I don't know. But what I did was I flew a plane as deep in the mountains as I could to the last, like, sort of flat strip of land, put on a backpack, and just walked into the mountains for weeks, just walking from village to village, just with photos. The problem was I got snowed in immediately. You can't clear a runway out deep in the mountains.
Unbelievable.
I got snowed in. It was miraculous that I got out. But yeah, we had some tough times, but I ended up finding all those families.
Every one of them,
Every single one.
you were able. And then there were a couple of children that you had to come back and tell them that they truly were orphans.
Yeah,
that had to be tough.
That gutted me. I mean, there were two of the smallest kids, and they expected, you know, like everybody else, like, oh, my family really is still alive. I went out, I found that their family actually had died. Their mother and father had died and had to come back. I came back with photos of families for all of them, except these two young kids, and that just broke my heart.
But you handled it so amazingly well. I mean, I was struck in the book by how for a young man who did not have a family of your own at the time and really hadn't had a lot of experience with children, you just had a sort of built-in radar and sensitivity for how to relate to these children and how to love them. You have started an organization to help the children of Nepal. You mentioned that Nepal is a country with great poverty. Tell me about the organization you've started and what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks. Next Generation Nepal. I knew that I had to start some kind of organization in order to raise funds from people. I was dead broke myself. And so I got back out there and I realized, what do we need to do? Well, turns out, we thought there were about 18 kids who had been trafficked. It turns out there's about 15,000 that have been trafficked. And so we realized, these aren't on anybody's radar. Nobody knows about this type of trafficking. Nobody really knows about Nepal. And so Next Generation Nepal, what we do is, first of all, try to rescue these kids. Last week, we rescued another 20 kids from a child trafficker.
Wow.
And we just send people out into the mountains, again, with backpacks on, and they don't come back until they find these families, every single one of them. And so, as you mentioned, the first trip, 4 weeks in the mountains, 24 families for just me. Now we've found about 400 families and been reuniting them with their kids.
Wow.
It's been extraordinary.
You made reference a couple of minutes ago to the fact that a lot of this occurred before you really had come on a spiritual journey of your own and discovered Christ for yourself. Tell me about how that happened and where you're at spiritually right now.
It was so funny. I mean, like, I couldn't have been further from, Christ or anything else. And I was also living in a place where it's all Hindu or Buddhist. There aren't a lot of Christians out in Nepal, as you can imagine. But, online, I met this wonderful woman who was coming out to volunteer named Liz Flanagan. And she came out. I knew she was a Christian. I'm like, oh, boy, here we go. What's this all about, Christianity? And I met her, and she was just wonderful. She had such a heart for the kids. And I thought, I want to get to know this a little better. So I picked up a Bible, expecting it to be in it what everybody told me would be in it, hypocrisy and bigotry and everything. And there in Nepal, surrounded by 20 Hindu kids in a Buddhist neighborhood, I read the gospel, and I was like, wow, this is me.
Where was this all my life?
Where was this all my life? And so, very quickly got luckily engaged and married my beautiful wife, Liz, who brought me to Christ. And right now, I just sort of every day I try to reach out to skeptics and try to, do what I can do to sort of like advance His word.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. Well, Connor's book is called Little Princes. It's available everywhere the books are sold, and it's a great adventure. You really need to read this. It'll also give you a great heart to find out more about Nepal. If you'd like to know more about Next Generation Nepal, you can do that by logging on to CBN.com. But Connor, what a great book. Expect to see a movie.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, God bless you. Great to have you with us, Pat.
Make a great movie. I'm sure it'll be done. Well, still ahead, a comedian whose marriage was no laughing matter.
The comedy club lifestyle definitely affected my marriage in a negative way. The distance alone is enough. The other part of it, too, is you're constantly chasing money. You're constantly going from gig to gig.
We'll see how he kept his career and saved his marriage. That's coming up next.
I was in a lot of pain. I remember feeling, I don't want to have cancer. Why is this happening?
I went to pray with my 10-year-old. He said that he wished he had two hearts because one of them was breaking.
I had to reassure her a lot that I'm going to be okay. Things are going to be all right. God's on our side.
This is one thing that Cancer Treatment Center does for people. They give them the courage and the strength to battle cancer.
When you first walk in that building, you almost feel like there's the presence of the Holy Spirit.
It is about the patient. It is only about the patient and what is it that they need and what do they want.
Call now and we'll send you this free DVD that shows you how our very special team of experts and caregivers put you at the center of everything we do. Hope is alive at Cancer Treatment Centers of America.
I don't really see how anyone can get through a life-threatening disease without the Lord in their life. He gives us the strength that we need to carry on.
Hi, I'm Dr. Joyce Brothers. Those of us who are independent and live alone shouldn't do so without having emergency protection. And for reliability and peace of mind, I recommend Alert USA.
With Alert USA, if you ever need assistance, just press your pendant to be connected to an operator who can summon help to your home 24 hours a day.
I've been giving advice for many years, and I believe Alert USA provides the best emergency support and value for your dollar. Call now for a free brochure.
And welcome back to the 700 Club. Religious leaders in France are protesting President Nicolas Sarkozy's plan to hold a debate next week over the role of Islam in that country. Leaders from France's Catholics, Protestants, Orthodox Christians, Jews, Buddhists, and Muslims have published a joint statement. They argue the debate could lead to Muslims being stigmatized in France. Arizona Governor Jan Brewer signed tougher abortion regulations into law yesterday. The new law makes it illegal for doctors to perform abortions based on the sex or race of the fetus. Supporters say it will stop sex and race discrimination against the unborn, but opponents say there's no such proof that abortions take place like that in Arizona. You can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com. Pat and Terry will be back with more of the club after this.
In the next 60 seconds, we want you to qualify to be the next $50,000 home makeover winner. Pick up the phone and get ready to start dialing when the number appears on your screen. Call the number on your screen now and we'll mail you a key. If your key opens the lock in your local Direct Buy Club, you'll be the next $50,000 home makeover winner. Operators are standing by, so call right now. Direct Buy Club has already awarded over $1 million, and someone is going to win the $50,000 home makeover. Why not you? If the phone number is blinking, the phone lines are open. Call now to receive your key and an invitation to your local Direct Buy Club, where members can save thousands or more paying low direct from the source prices on big ticket items. Like kitchen cabinets, home furnishings, flooring, bathroom fixtures, and so much more. Call now and get your key to winning a $50,000 home makeover. Someone is going to win the $50,000 home makeover. Why not you?
Tomorrow. They finally came back to us and said, there's a problem with your documents.
Locked up abroad.
And I realized this is for real.
An American imprisoned in Iran.
They beat me for about 6 hours.
Facing the ultimate penalty.
If I'm gonna be here the rest of my life, why not check out? The only way not to stay there was to die.
Tomorrow.
Well, the man in our next story makes his living as an entertainer. He's not only a stand-up comic, he's also a stand-up husband and father. But at one time, his career almost cost him that wonderful marriage.
Think about Joni. You've been stuck in the belly of a whale for 3 days. You gotta come home and tell your wife this. A whale, Jonah, a whale, a whale, a whale. That's the best you could do.
Stand-up comic Akintunde Warnock is a sought-after writer and performer in the entertainment industry. He currently writes for BET talk show host Monique. But growing up, he faced challenges that affected him for the rest of his life.
When I was young, I grew up in the hood, the projects. And then we moved out of the projects, and then we still didn't have a lot of money. My father left when I was 7 years old, and I remember a lot of times, I spent a lot of time searching for manhood.
As a young man, Akintunde realized he had the gift to make people laugh. He began performing for open mic nights at comedy clubs. He gained success on the circuit, but still felt something was missing from his life.
One of the things that I always wanted was to have a happy family because my father left. So because of that, One of the things that I was longing for and I wanted to create for myself was a solid marriage, a solid family.
He married his girlfriend Eunice, but his dreams of having a solid marriage began to crumble.
The comedy club lifestyle definitely affected my marriage in a negative way. The distance alone, is enough. The other part of it too is you're constantly chasing money. That's another thing. I mean, you're constantly going from gig to gig.
When they were together, they argued over money, over his long hours on the road, over everything.
My marriage was breaking down.
When we got together, we were not saved, and drama was like a regular part of our lives, just the drama that the world brings.
A single question burned in Akintunde's heart. He says he finally asked God,
can anybody have a successful relationship and be in the entertainment genre? And God said to me, you can, but you have to come to me through my son. And at that time, that was totally foreign to me.
By now, his wife Eunice had become a Christian, and she was praying constantly for her husband. One day, he rode home with a friend in the industry who was a Christian.
I kind of asked him, I said, man, how do you do it all? You own real estate, you've got a business, you've got a great marriage. What do you do? And he said, well, I'm a Christian. I said, I've been thinking about going to church. And he said, well, you don't have to go to church to accept Jesus. He said, you can accept Jesus right here. Would you like to accept Christ? And I'm like, yeah. He took my hand, led me to Christ, and then gave me some scripture and invited me to his church, which I wind up joining. And from that point on, I was a believer, not a perfect believer, but.
Akintunde is the first to admit that his walk with the Lord was a step-by-step process. One of the areas that was hard to change was his comedy routines.
At that time, even though I wasn't one of the filthiest comedians, my set was not godly at all, and I cursed a whole lot. It got to a point where every night was a struggle because I was saying things that the audience liked, and it was funny, but it was grieving my spirit. It would be times when I was on stage, and I'm having the best set of my life up until that point. And inside, every joke, my spirit is like, oh.
Eventually, he cleaned up his comedy routine, but more importantly, his marriage started to turn around.
One of the first things that healed was my marriage, and that was the process. And I think because even though we struggled, me making the shift from secular comedy and not doing anything for a while, and then decided to become a gospel Christian comedian, we struggled. But I think she honored the fact that I made a decision and the fact that she had been praying for me. She had been diligently praying for me.
Akintunde's career took off.
And it's amazing. As soon as I got unfocused on being a quote-unquote star in the Hollywood way, that's when more doors started opening. I got more TV writing credits after I became a Christian. Before, I kind of struggled along and I would get things here and there, but then I got hired for 3 TV shows in 1 year.
Eunice and Akintunde have 5 children.
Do we have challenges? Yes, that's life. But at the end of the day, there's a peace because I know that God's got it. He's brought me this far. He's taken care of my children. He's prospered us in front of people. He's prospered us in our own eyes because we're like, wow, God.
So if anybody that is thinking about or contemplating becoming a believer and you think that my professional life won't allow me to do so, I challenge you to give it to God and watch him supernaturally just increase it. He'll open doors for you that no agent, no lawyer, no manager can open. And in whatever field that you're in, he will do things for you that will blow your mind.
The temptation is there for everybody in every walk of life to cut corners. If you're a comedian, a little bit of blue humor would just be great. A few off-color jokes, so why not? The audience laughs, you get a laugh, and you feel good. You're in business, your boss tells you to fudge the truth, fudge the facts. You're selling a house, you're selling stock, you're selling real estate, whatever you're doing. There's always that temptation. Let's fudge a little. Let's fudge a little. Let's play this game. And you think, well, I can go to church and I can talk to Jesus, and I can sing hymns, but during the week, that's what's expected of me. I'm supposed to live like the world, because if not, I'm going to lose a lot of money. Now, what you just heard was that God blessed him beyond what he had before. But it isn't always that way. Sometimes following Jesus costs a lot. I'd be a fool to tell you otherwise. I remember a guy down in Dallas, Texas, that came to the Lord. He had one of the most successful restaurant clubs in the city, very popular. But they served alcohol and lots of it. And when he stopped selling booze, his business just went in the tank, and it didn't necessarily get any better. So I can't tell you that it'll get better, but what I can tell you is that he was one with Jesus. And when the end of this life comes, he's going to spend forever in eternity. And that's what's important. So don't listen to the devil's blandishment and say, okay, I'll cut corners. You live for him. And by the way, if you're having trouble with your marriage, let Jesus Christ take it, and he'll do it. We've got something I want to give you. It's called Love and Marriage. Some of you are having trouble with your marriage. You just heard about somebody that was, his employment, his comedy was taking him away from his home, and his marriage was going to break up. But in the Lord, he got back together. Love and Marriage. We'll give it to you free if you just call in and say, I want that booklet on love and marriage. And it's all free, 1-800-759-0700. We'll give it to you free of charge. Let's have the Lord at the center of your home. Terry?
Well, still ahead, we'll bring it online with your chat questions for Pat, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
I had chased the record deal for years with no results. And then I let it go and I turned it over to him, and then there it is. I want people to know that you can't be bad enough for God to not love you or forgive you or to give you a second chance. He doesn't give you the right to judge you, so stop there and learn to love you the way he loves you. And then you can enjoy life more than you've ever enjoyed it before.
When you look in the mirror, can you imagine erasing years of aging? That's what I used to look like. Lifestyle Lift takes only about an hour. See the difference immediately.
I'm Linda. I'm 70 years old. Can you believe it?
Call now for a free information kit. It's quick, affordable, and takes only about an hour. Lifestyle Lift, a breakthrough medical procedure that helps remove wrinkles, frown lines, and sagging skin. Call now for a free information kit. Consultations are free. Call Lifestyle Lift today.
Come on and cross over to the all-new Cross Country Radio from CBN.com. Cross Country, where country meets the cross.
In a village in Myanmar, a widow named Sabe worked a 12-hour shift. For that, she made $2 a day and had a 3-hour bus ride to and from work. But now she supports herself and her daughter right in her own home. Take a look.
After her husband died, Sabe began to grow desperate. Tears streaked her traditional Burmese makeup as she told us about her fears.
My husband had provided for us while I stayed home with our daughter, but now he was gone. I wondered what we would do.
The young widow took a low-paying job drying fish. Just to get to that job, she had to ride a crowded bus 3 hours each way.
I went to the factory at 6 a.m. and came home at midnight. It was so tiring and stressful. I wondered how I could continue.
Sabe earned about $2 a day for her 12-hour shift. She worried about money, but even more, she was anxious about her young daughter.
I had no one to take care of her after school. We felt trapped.
When Operation Blessing learned about Sabe's plight, we offered to help her start a small business in her home. We brought her boxes of household goods and snacks to sell. It was a bit like Christmas watching her open everything and set up shop. Today, Sabe earns twice as much as she once did in the factory, and best of all, she gets to stay home and take care of her daughter.
What a big relief. I could not have done this by myself. I'm so thankful to CBN. You saved our lives.
Meeting dreams, fulfilling hopes, and giving futures to people. That's what you do when you join the 700 Club. You know, people like Sabe are all over the world. They're grieving, they're left alone, they don't have means, they don't know how they're going to make it from day to day. And then you come along as 700 Club members and you give them not a handout, but a hand up to hope, a future, a tomorrow. We want to say thank you. If you're a 700 Club member, you do that every day of the year. If you're not yet a 700 Club member, this is a terrific day to make that decision. All you have to do is go to your phone and call that toll-free number on your screen. It's 1-800-759-0700. Just call and say to the person on the other end of the line, I want to join the 700 Club. 65 cents a day, $20 a month makes you a part of the family of ministries that reaches out to the world from here. So please call now. Our way of saying thank you when you do is to send you the Law of Expectation. This is teaching by both Gordon and Pat. It's fabulous, and you will love it. It will bless you and encourage you in your own walk. And by the way, when you call, if you say, I'd like to use Pledge Express, that's electronic monthly giving. It means your bank does all the work. You don't have to remember any of the stamps, the envelopes, the mailing process, none of it. It saves us administrative costs. And so our way of saying thank you for using Pledge Express is to send you Power for Life teachings. You'll get one of these a month, and we think you'll really be blessed and encouraged by them. So right now, call 1-800-759-0700. Say, I want to join the 700 Club, and I want to do it using Pledge Express. Want to answer some questions?
Before I do that, you know, yesterday we had a novel guest named Blue.
I think I've met that guy before.
Yeah, he's getting to be a celebrity. So Blue wants to do a Facebook page, and he's going to have something.
He told you that, did he?
It's going to be called Blue's Notes. So look forward to that. We'll have a blue cam on him so he can have his own little camera.
Yeah, you'll know his. He signs with his paw.
That's right.
A very large paw.
Look for it on Facebook. It's not quite ready to go, but Blue's a celebrity. Somebody came by to fix a piece of furniture and said, oh, I saw him on television. How do you think? Oh, please. You start asking for, special.
You could have opened Pandora's box here.
He's got an agent. All right, what?
Okay, this is Doug, who says, Pat, you mentioned a government shutdown earlier. My income consists of Social Security and veterans benefits. I'm worried that a government shutdown will stop me from getting these checks, and then I won't be able to pay my bills. Am I right?
No, I don't think so. I think if there's a government shutdown, they'll still continue to pay Social Security and veterans benefits. They won't stop that regardless.
What does it mean when they shut down?
Well, it means like the Washington Monuments, you don't have guards. If it's an elevator, nobody's running the elevator. It means that a number of services will not be performed. But I think cranking out checks, I think certain ones of them, they'll keep going regardless. But that's what it means. I mean, it shuts down. Think of all the national parks. Think of all the services that go on.
Goodness.
Think of the Veterans Bureau, the hospitals, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of things would shut if the government shuts down.
Okay, this is Maureen, who says, I saw recently the General Electric paid zero in income taxes off of $12 billion in profits. In fact, they received a refund of $3 billion. Wouldn't much of our budget woes be solved by closing these loopholes?
No, they really wouldn't. I don't think that's a loophole. I don't know what GE's, was that General Motors or General?
General Electric.
I don't think GE, I don't think those figures are right, to tell you the truth. I don't know where you read it, but
Well, there's been a lot of talk in the news about it lately. A lot of people relocating their offices and just
but
finding
relocating their
loopholes
offices, you know, if you've got, you don't pay taxes on losses, and if you're losing money, you don't pay taxes. So that is not a loophole. And so I don't know what loopholes they've got, but yes, there are a lot of loopholes in the tax code that should be closed down. We should go for a flat tax. You know,
with everybody paying their fair share, it would be, I mean, that's the bottom line of the whole thing, corporately and individually.
Well, if we had a
right?
17% flat tax, everybody pays it, and you cut out almost all deductions. I would leave charitable deductions, and that's it. You take out deductions for real estate, everything, and cut everybody and bring the corporate tax down to about 17%. It's a winner, and Dick Armey wanted to do it. I know Steve Forbes has been pushing it real hard. It's a winner. You cut out all these crazy exemptions and all that work. And, of course, it put a bunch of accountants out of work, too, but that's too bad. They'll have to work someplace else.
Okay.
All right.
This is Kyle, who says, my friend gave her life to Christ, but she still smokes weed. She says it's okay because she uses it medicinally to treat her anxiety. Secondly, she says that God put it on the earth for that reason. I don't quite know what to say to her.
I think she's confused. You know, the thing of it is that you're strong in your faith and you understand, and she's weak in her faith and she just doesn't know any better. She says it's medicinal. I don't know. But I don't think that's going to keep her from going to heaven. Whatever's not of faith is sin. She thinks it's okay. And I know that sounds like a crazy way of doing it, but that's what the Bible says. Whatever is not of faith is sin. So if you believe in your heart that what you're doing is a sin, then it's a sin to you. To her, she thinks I'm smoking this stuff.
Well, it is illegal.
It's illegal, but not necessarily medicinally in California. I mean, it may be okay.
Yeah, but I think she's just using it herself for her personal
But you're
anxiety.
judging now. You don't know. Only God knows.
Well, medicinal is when a doctor prescribes it, right?
Well, not necessarily. You can take medicinal. I take vitamins. No doctor prescribes them, but they're good for me.
Yeah, well, they're legal.
Terry, you're such a legalist. Here, I thought you were just filled with compassion and mercy.
No, but I don't break the law. Even if I'm anxious.
Even if you're anxious, well.
In fact, it makes me anxious to break the law.
It makes you anxious. Well, I think in California, in some areas, medicinal is okay.
Well, maybe she is in California. That
All
could be.
right, but next.
Okay, Tiffany says, I heard that there were 3 levels of heaven. What are these levels? Will I be going to a higher level if I'm a better Christian, kind of like a reverse Dante's Inferno?
Well, the Apostle Paul said he was caught up into the 3rd heaven. But I think the first heaven is the earth. I mean,
sky,
the sky, what's around us, and then there's another one, and then up on top of that. And I don't think the Bible is very explicit about the fact that there are layers for rewards for the way you live and so forth. But the Apostle Paul said we all have to stand before the bema, the judgment seat of Christ, to receive the things done in our body, whether they're good or bad. So you'd think that there should be some rewards for people who are living a righteous life and are doing things, but the Bible is not very express about that, and I don't want to say what, you know, as fact, what the Bible isn't clear about. All right.
Okay, here's Maya, who says, there are some bands on the radio that call themselves Christians, but they're on secular stations and on secular labels. There's nothing wrong, per se, with their lyrics, but is what they're doing by playing solely to a secular market wrong?
Of course it's not wrong. I mean, Paul said, I became all things to all men, that by all means I might win some. So if these people can get their songs played out on a secular rock station and have kids listening to them, and if there are words in there that,
absolutely,
you know, it'd be.
How about if they're just clean?
Sure.
You know, just.
I mean, that'd be a great improvement over some of that garbage that's out there. So, why not? I mean, absolutely. God wants His witness throughout all society, not just a few. Well, we leave you with these words from Jesus said in John: "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." Thank you so much. The 700 Club on tomorrow, same time. Don't miss it.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. 8 years ago, my husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.